Orioles, I just like saying first place Baltimore Orioles while I can, are headed to San Diego for a quick couple of games, then on to Seattle and down to L.A. to take on the Dodgers right around the 4th of July. We've spent some time this week out in San Diego chatting with lots of media folks out there, not just about the Padres, but also the All-Star game, as well as the San Diego Chargers and their status, as well as Eric Weddle coming in here, one of the Chargers' favorite sons. Ben Higgins has been around San Diego a long time as one of the news dudes at 10 News in San Diego, as well as on the mighty 1090 on the sports radio side. One of our defending champs. We welcome him back. Ben, what's going on, man? How's life out in beautiful San Diego?
Nestor, it's great. Thanks for having me on. And always enjoy when you get to say your team is in first place, because now that Cleveland has their championship, I've been looking around, and most of these national publications are saying San Diego is one of the two most miserable sports cities in America.
Well, now, Buffalo has to be involved there because they don't win anything there either.
Usually there, but the Chargers won an AFL title in 1963, and that's all we got. 53 years ago since our only title. Padres never won anything. Flippers never won anything. We had the Rockets for 10 years. They never won anything either. We got Zippo in this town.
Ben, I've spent far too much time in San Diego over the last quarter of a century to be worried about parades and championships and such. I mean, you got sunshine, you got beaches, you've got a beautiful ballpark for the baseball team, and the football team, that is the story, obviously, in San Diego, as much as the Padres scuffling and the All-Star game coming into town. The Chargers still being in this limbo is the biggest sports story in San Diego, right?
Sure is. There's probably going to be a vote coming up in November. I'm actually standing outside of Petco Park. I can see over where the Chargers want to build their new stadium if it gets approved, but we still don't even know if 50% of the voters need to approve it or 67% of the voters need to approve it. So there's a lot of questions, and if it doesn't pass, will the Chargers move to Inglewood or will they try something else here? We really don't know. All we know is we've got at least one more season of Chargers football, and hopefully it'll be a good one, at least a bounce back from last year's 4-12, and I know the Ravens are thinking the same thing.
In the political world that we're in now with, the Trumps and the Clintons and the Bernies, the 67-50 thing's fascinating, right? Like, who gets to decide whether it's 67 or 50? And whichever way it's decided, we'll know whoever's doing the deciding is trying to tilt the vote one way. It's a hell of a lot of difference between 67 and 50, man.
Yeah, 67 is virtually impossible.
Of course.
They like to say you can't even get 67% of people to agree that the sky is blue. So 50 is very doable. We don't even know who exactly is the one deciding it. It could come down to a couple of court cases that are currently pending in California, maybe the California Supreme Court, and we have no idea when that might even be decided. So, yeah, you could say having football fans in limbo here is an understatement.
All right, to the baseball team, we saw them briefly last week. We'll see them briefly again this week. I sit here as an Oriole fan wearing an Oriole hat and a buckled up, shirt here in the first place Orioles. We spent 14 years in last place, and we know what it's like to lose. I know what it looks like when the ballpark's empty, when downtown's empty. For the Padres, they, as an ownership group, really made a move a year and a half ago to compete with the Dodgers, to compete with the Giants, to spend money. I applaud them, and I'm a closet Padres fan. I got a couple of Padres old school mustard and brown jerseys and an old Tony Gwynn jersey in my closet. I pull for the Padres. I like the direction they were heading in until the players actually showed up and had to play.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to use a poker analogy, they put all their chips in the middle. They had good position. They thought they'd have a good hand, and they looked down at their cards, and it was like 7-2 offsuit. And it just didn't work. All the moves that they made just didn't gel. And while they've ended up with some good players, I mean, Will Myers has turned out, I think, to be a terrific pickup. The former Rookie of the Year in the American League, and he has been absolutely on fire here in the month of June. It just hasn't translated to wins. The pitching staff has been battered by injuries. Matt Kemp is clearly, on the downside of his career, and it's going to be an expensive albatross to try to get rid of if they can even find anyone who's interested in taking him before the deadline. So now they've basically just, halted what was kind of a promising rebuilding project with some young minor leaguers. They traded a bunch of them away, and now they're starting over with another rebuilding project, and we're 10 years since the last time the Padres went to the playoffs in 2006.
Well, it wouldn't be a bad time to sell off, right? And I don't know what Will Myers brings in trade, but he certainly has blossomed this year. Kemp comes with a huge contract as well. Upton and, Fernando Rodney's been as good as anybody. This is going to be the next couple of weeks trade talk, right? And how do they become a better team next year? The one thing I can't imagine them doing is going into the offseason and spending money because they're still trying to unload part of that James Shields nonsense, right?
Yeah, well, they're going to have to pay half of James Shields' contract just to, keep him playing in Chicago. And if they do get rid of Kemp and or Melvin Upton, it will also come at a hefty price tag. So they're going to have a lot of dead money on the books. And you give the ownership here credit. They increased the payroll to record levels the last 2 seasons. It just hasn't worked out. But, yeah, you're going to see some moves. I would say the most tradable commodities right now in the Padres are John Jay, if he can get healthy again. He's been out the last week with the bone bruise, but he's really had a nice season after they picked him up from the St. Louis Cardinals. You mentioned Fernando Rodney, the closer, who's been terrific, and Drew Pomeranz, who has been a surprise revelation in the starting rotation. A lot of teams need left-handers, and he's put up some really good numbers, over 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, an opposing batting average below 200. These are things that other teams will probably be interested in.
Well, there's another guy that has been very, very well traveled, right? Didn't make it in a couple of organizations and now has really put together, pretty nice campaign to make himself look like the guy they would want starting on opening day next year, right?
Absolutely. The Padres have a terrific pitching coach in Darren Balsley, who's been here for many, many years, and he just seems to get a hold of some of these guys who haven't done quite as well elsewhere, and whether it's a little tweak in mechanics or adding a pitch, we've seen a lot of great success. Plus, it's a good pitcher's park, even after some of the changes and bringing in the fences. Still a good place to pitch at Petco Park. So definitely kind of a rejuvenation factor for pitchers who come to San Diego.
Ben, I got to tell you, this All-Star game's fascinating to us here in Baltimore because this was supposed to be the Baltimore All-Star game. They put a portrait of Bud Selig in a hallway at Petco Park. I've Googled this, Ben. And the next thing you know, there's going to be one hell of a celebration out there, from our end here and having our owners suing all the other owners, which cost us the All-Star game. We're going to have our little faces pressed up to the glass and watching San Diego have fun. I know the Padres wanted the team to be better when this happened, but I can't imagine a more glorious spot down there in the gas lamp to hold an All-Star game than what you're going to see in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a teacher's pet going on and sucking up toward the boss to try to get that All-Star game. But, to be honest, the Petco Park opened in 2004. It's a jewel of a ballpark, and I think the Padres have said enough is enough. We built this park now 12 years ago. We need to get the All-Star game. We're not waiting. The next National League one was already taken. We're not waiting another 5 or 7 years. You need to figure out a way to give us one. And sorry to the people of Baltimore who were probably excited to see it back there again, but baseball came up with this solution that looked like they needed to find one for 2016. So we're going to play American League rules in the National League ballpark, but with the designated hitter this year.
Yeah, I mean, you find out when you get on the wrong side of Major League Baseball, you lose All-Star games. For San Diego and hosting this thing, and you've been there a long time, and I talk about my San Diego fandom. I'm guilty of that. It really has been sort of a sad tale in modern history, right? Of Junior Seau and of Tony Gwynn. We've lost Ted Williams, obviously due to age, but a lot of the San Diego legends aren't around to participate in this thing, right?
Yeah, no, we definitely have. I mean, what we've been blessed for in the weather certainly has been taken from us in our sports teams. And yeah, it's. We've had some happy moments, but they seem to be overshadowed by tragedy. The Chargers, not just Junior Seau, but the one team that made it to the Super Bowl has been hit by an unbelievable run of tragedy. One of the players died in a plane crash. I think another was struck by lightning. I mean, you can look it up, the 1994 Chargers, and how many of them have died young, of course, including Junior Seau, who took his own life, which is incredibly sad for one of the most positive, energetic people, most loved people San Diego has ever had. Just devastating for this town.
Yeah, it goes without saying. Every time I go out and see that Tony Gwynn statue, what are the honors around Tony Gwynn? I mean, I know that's one thing baseball has tried to step aside from, the sadness and the awfulness, but then we've seen people out on the forefront trying to save more lives, including Tony's family, right?
It's been great. It really has. Everyone, Tony's legacy continues to live on. We just hit the 2-year anniversary of his passing, but it came with, another push, awareness toward, chewing tobacco and trying to get kids not even start because it's so addictive, and it's such a positive message that has been Tony's legacy in addition to his greatness on the field. Just what a kind and, generous man that he always was, and just a pleasure to deal with from someone, in my business, in the media. You couldn't ask for someone better than Tony Gwynn. And growing up in San Diego as a fan, you couldn't ask for a better hitter to watch on a day-in, day-out basis, winning 8 batting titles in this town. That, he really is maybe the best thing that's ever happened to San Diego sports.
Ben Higgins joining us here. He is Ben Higgins SD out on Twitter and also at 10 News in San Diego, as well as at the Mighty 1090, doing a little sports conversation. You talk about good guys. Eric Weddle, first off the bus here, leaving San Diego and signing up with Baltimore against Pittsburgh and the Raiders and some of the other places. He feels to be a quality addition to this Ravens team this year.
He is a good guy, and he's a good player. He's not necessarily going to put up the flashiest of numbers, he lead the team in interceptions, but he's going to be in the right place at the right time, and he's going to make the players around him better. Make no mistake, the Chargers will miss Eric Weddle. I don't necessarily think they made the wrong decision to move on. They had to get younger. They had to focus on some other areas, and Weddle was going to be kind of expensive, and he's certainly at some point going to decline a little bit. But my guess is the Ravens, for at least a couple of years, are going to have a really good player that's going to make that team a lot better.
Hey, man, always great to catch up with you. Enjoy the sunshine and the fish tacos. I keep telling the Oriole fans, if you were going to do one trip this year, we play in San Francisco and Oakland the same week. We've had these White Sox Cubs weeks out in Chicago. Hey, man, a couple days in San Diego is the worst places in the world to spend there than down at Petco Park watching baseball. So enjoy the games this week, even if your teams aren't doing all that well.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of tourist dollars coming into town from Baltimore and the Yankees this weekend. So, hey, bring it on in. That's how we make our living out here.
Yeah, all that orange you see is not Donald Trump. Those are Oriole fans.
Take care, Nestor.
See you, Ben. Ben Higgins, SD, the way to follow him out on Twitter in San Diego, as well as at News 10 out in San Diego, a longtime anchor there. Great to have him aboard. And hopefully we have a Orioles sweep aboard before it's all over with, a mini sweep after a real nice turn after losing that Padres game last Tuesday night here at Camden Yards. Orioles back in first place, getting it done and trying to put some distance between them and the Red Sox and Tampa now as the Orioles go west. Padres for a couple, 4 in Seattle, and then on to the Dodgers in L.A. at Dodger Stadium before we get to the All-Star break and before the Orioles come home. 31-13 at home so far for the Orioles, off to a phenomenal start. And anytime I can say the first place Baltimore Orioles, I want to take the opportunity to do that because I've been doing sports radio here for a long time and have not had the chance to do that. Anything you miss, you can find in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. You can also download the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear. Big thanks to our friends at buyatoyota.com. Don't forget our morning newspaper hits your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. It is powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life, and there's one right around the corner from you. Our morning newspaper, always the best way to stay in touch, but if you can't do that, the text service brings you that breaking news instantly as it happens. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. It is our best service, the WNST text service. Sign up online and make sure you're tuning in on Thursday as Dennis drives you home from 3 until 5. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.